back at NookChat, and we have a special guest today. We have Pam Ames. The Jones is important because they were very big in NookChat, and they've been around a long time. So, but she wants to tell us not only about her family, but about the Everson, well, it really used to be called the Fall Festival, but now it's called the Everson NookChat Summer Festival, and the parades and such that went on. And the Jones family, of course, always had a good parade, a good float in the parade, and they often won first prize. So they were well aware of what the events was all about. So, Pam, go ahead.
All righty. Well, I had a delightful conversation with Jim on the phone a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago or so, and as the parade chat winds down, we might have a couple of other things we might want to say about how our paths almost crossed, anyway, property-wise or something. Anyway, it was kind of fun chatting with Jim. He had asked me to give a little background about how the family got here, where they came from, and so that's what I'm going to start with. And then I want you cogitating on the two questions that I have about the Everson Parade. I want to know when it changed from the Everson Fall Festival to the Everson Summer Festival, what year that was that it made the change. I didn't have a chance to do any research because my week to do my research on this was this week. I have it on the calendar for next Sunday, but Jim informed me that no, it was going to be today. So I'm here between two grandsons' birthday parties and not really prepared with a whole lot. So I'm asking you, when did it change its name from Fall Festival to Everson Festival? And one other thing I want to know, if anybody knows when it changed from people watching the parade clapping for the entries to people in the parade throwing goodies. Does anybody know when those things change? Because I don't, and those are the things I want to know about the Everson Exact Parade. Anyway, so Jim asked me to tell a little bit.
You think about that now, so that we can have an answer.
So Jim asked me to tell a little bit about when our family came to the area. And this is my grandparents, Jadwiga and John Legoski. They were schoolmates in Poland, a little town called Estebna, Poland. And both emigrated to the United States separately as young adults in 1913. And then they re-met in Wisconsin and married that same year. So this is their wedding picture from 1913. By the time they had almost all of my aunts and uncles, after they refound each other, they found the fertile farmlands of Whatcom County, and via the coal mines of West Virginia and a little town, mining town in Wyoming named Coy that is no longer there anymore, where my mother was born, they eventually came out here to Whatcom County. And this is a picture in 1926, shortly after they had moved to Whatcom County. So my grandpa and my grandma, John Legoski, who grew up in all of his kids grew up right in Nooksack. Sue married John Franzen from Clipper area, I believe, and they grew up in the Sumas area. All of my cousins from John and Sue. Andy had a big house right outside of Nooksack. Horses were the big thing with Lou. Andy lived right on the home place, the home farm, right at the foot of the hill going up to Nooksack Elementary and the cemetery, that farm at the base of the hill at the creek. That was my grandma and grandpa's dairy farm. Our family grew up in, Tom, do you remember what the name of our house was? There was a family name connected to our house in Nooksack. It had an upstairs apartment. My room upstairs had a miniature version of that Gillies cook stove in it. There was an upstairs living room and kitchen and bathroom, and then the downstairs. And there used to be a name for that house. It's right next to the Methodist church. Anyway, that's where our family grew up. Aggie stayed at the home place with my grandparents and helped watch over them. And then a younger sister was born, I think, 14 years after my mom, Rosemary, and she married Howard Whitman, and they continue the whole horse legacy of the family. And Howard's son, Randy's daughter, so I guess that makes us second cousins, continues that draft horse legacy, and she's the next farm from our house in Lawrence, and they have big Belgian horses that they do in pulling contests all over Canada and Washington. But anyway, so that's the Legoski family, dairy farming family. After leaving the coal mines of West Virginia and Coy, Wyoming, came out here to Whatcom County in 1926. So then, my mom was a Rosie the Riveter in Seattle, and through her cousin met my father in World War II, or just before the war started. And my father was from Missouri. Mm-hmm. And after the war, they got married. My brother Tom was born in Greeley, Colorado. I was born in Missouri, not too far from where my dad was from. My younger brother Steve Jones was born in Ottawa, Kansas. And by the time my brother Mark Jones was born, we were back here in Everson. And the house that has the little dairy drive-through in front of it, that was our first house here in Everson. After we lived with my grandparents, and we were in Everson, then we went to Sumas. Anyway, that's where the parade story starts. Because in 1954, so this little poster was, maybe I should show the backside first. This poster was made for one of our Jones parade entries. I think it says 1954 to 2004. Fun, fun, fun at the Everson Festival. So Tom probably remembers more about this particular day than I do because he was that much older. But in 1954, when we were living in the Everson house, my Auntie Ag came down, and baton twirlers were big at that time. My auntie made me a crepe paper costume, complete with a baton, made out of a broken mop handle and a potato. And I led the parade. So I thought I was pretty big stuff moving here to Grandma and Grandpa Legoski's, neck of the woods, and getting to lead the parade like a baton twirler. Whoa, I thought that was really big stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Then my brother Tom, and I just thought of this today, Tom. If you can get a close-up on these bicycle riders, okay, they've got their bikes all decorated, and they're just staring down. I thought, why were they so concentrated? And then there's a picture behind all the bicycle riders over on that corner, and they're in such a straight line. I thought, somebody starting the parade must have told you guys to stay on the white line. That's the only thing I can figure. Do you remember it all, Tom? Because you guys are really concentrating, looking down. I thought, they're trying to stay on that white line, I bet. Anyway. Well, I don't remember if we got any awards, any ribbons, any placements or anything for that. But, so that was in 1954. The next memory I have of the Everson Fall Festival and Parade was, actually it's a rather personal memory, and I even had the props to go with it that I would have had next Sunday. I still have my white leather purse with a chain on it that had emergency supplies just in case. At the Everson Fall Festival, when I was 12, going into 7th grade, I became a woman in pants, much like I have on today. White pants. And my very first boyfriend wanted to ride me home on his bike. You know how you would do that? You'd sit on that middle bar of the bike. Well, after visiting the little restroom that was off of the tennis courts off the park with my emergency kit in my little white purse, I decided, oh my gosh, I cannot be ridden home on that bicycle. That is going to be potentially very, very embarrassing. And anyway, so I just demurely said to Jerry Zweers, I would prefer to walk, thank you. And by golly, he walked me all the way home from Everson to NookChat next to his bike. That was my next memory of the Everson Fall Festival.
Very vivid.
Very vivid, very vivid. The next memory of the Fall Festival was actually getting my first kiss. Unbeknownst to me, unplanned for by me, unwanted by me, but as I was being walked to the car where all the boys and kids, girls of our family were supposed to meet Mom at the car to go home after the festival. And they had rides and stuff at that time. There was a little Ferris wheel and there was all kinds of stuff. We were supposed to meet right in front of Hilda's ShopRite. And so I was there promptly on time. And by golly, if this boy from Mount Baker didn't plant a kiss on my cheek just as I was ducking into the car, and I was royally embarrassed. Because there was Mom and all the brothers and sisters, and my brothers, not Tom, but Steve and Mark, made up some sort of little mocking rhyme that, let's see if I can remember the boy's name. His first name was Denny, I think, and I can't remember what his last name was, but Steve and Mark made this little rhyme. Denny kissed ya, Denny kissed ya, Denny kissed ya, Denny kissed ya. And Mom and Dad didn't know what they were talking about. And I don't know if I ever did tell Mom about Denny giving me that smooch on the cheek, very unwanted, as we were ducking back into the car. Those are my only memories of the Everson Parade until 1975. Does anybody know when the parade started up again? So from 1963 or so to 1975, I have no memories. Did it take a big hiatus? Yes. Do you know how long, Tom?
The people that were in charge of the chamber and doing all the running of it got tired. So there in the early 70s, it just ceased to exist. So then there was this new blood that got it going. We need to do this. Well, then it shifted from fall to the summer, and that's when the big dances were in the parking lot down here. That was in the grocery store. That whole shopping complex was built in '74. And it was a year or two after that they had the street dance down there. So somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, it missed a few years.
Okay. And then it picked.
Then it came back as a summer thing.
Okay. Well, in 1976, I gave birth to a bicentennial baby. And I think it was my sister-in-law Debbie and I were sitting on the curb maybe watching the parade the year before. So maybe it started up again in 75? And we were sitting on the curb watching the parade and we thought, there are no kiddie entries. We've got to do something about this. We need to have some kiddie entries in the parade. Well, then the next year, 4 days postpartum, I loaded my 4-day-old little Patrick Henry into an antique baby carriage, covered him with a blanket that said 76 on it. Debbie's mom made a Revolutionary Soldier kind of shirt and pants for Christopher, and decked Jennifer, Debbie's daughter, in equally appropriate 1776-ish looking attire. And by golly, if we didn't stroll down the parade and win first prize, well, then that kind of got in our blood. And Rose can probably tell more, because after we started competing, there was this other big family that had all these other really cool entries. And so we were kind of back and forth in competition with each other for a while as we would line up the little parade route, as we would line up outside the post office down there. And we'd always be kind of sneaking a peek to see, what are the Lensons doing this year? It was fun.
It was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Anyway, so we had the Bicentennial Babe Salute the Future of America in 76. 77, I think we just watched the parade again, and then in 78 we had, following with my grandparents' theme, 1/4 Polish and proud of it. and it was the same 3 little folks. The next year we added 2 more cousins. So Debbie, my sister-in-law, and brother Steve, they had a new little baby, Brian, and we had a new baby, Michael. And so we loaded them all up in the wagon and celebrating our Hawaiian heritage with our Haole cousins. My husband is from Hawaii. Anyway, we won first prize again. The next year we did one of my favorites. Our kids were real Star Wars historians, and it was a break between episode 4 and episode 5, episode 6. We were waiting for the next movie to come out, and so we did a Star Wars entry, and that year we won first prize again, and we were so proud of our efforts that we took the kids to have a professional photo taken. So there's Princess Leia and the little sand crawler that we made out of a cardboard box, and the R2-D2 costume, and Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, and the little sand people and Jawas, with a few more new cousins. So that's down there in that corner. And so anyway, over the years, we just had fun with whichever new cousins were around, coming up with a new theme. And we did that consistently, and then we were getting kind of pooped out. And so we thought, well, let's just go for 10. Let's go for 10 first prizes, and then we'll retire. And by golly, if on that 10th entry, so we'd won every year, on that 10th entry, we got second. And we were incredulous. Especially, and do you remember this, Rose? Who we lost to that year was cute kids, really cute kids, but I am amazed if the calf survived. Because they had this little John Deere tractor-ish thing, and they were cute, 2 cute dressed up kids, and they had a collar around this little calf, and the calf kept falling down and getting drugged along the parade route. And we were all just, oh my gosh, somebody pick up that calf, somebody pick up that calf. And they won first prize. We couldn't believe it. We thought, oh, okay, the judges didn't see when the calf was being drugged down the center line of the road, I guess. Anyway, so then I'm trying to remember what we did. So from 77 to 87, I guess. Let's see, what were some of our themes? That one was a favorite over there. I don't know if you can see that. 1986, there was, we tried to do a Miss Liberty theme, and so we had the kids all dressed up with, in different costumes representing different, groups that came to America at different times. That was the one. We thought we had a winner. That was the one that was going to be our number 10. That's right. And instead we lost to the poor strangled calf. And then I don't remember if we came back the next year or not. Is there one of 87 on here?
We're married at 2 here. 99.
82 is over here. Oh yeah, we did when my brother-in-law, Marshall, and my sister Becky moved back to the area from Burlington area. Marshall can do anything. Unfortunately, these pictures don't highlight it well enough. The first time Marshall helped the kids with a parade entry, that was in 82. They did,
E.T.
what was it?
E.T.
Not E.T. In 82, they had the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had something to do with E.T.?
Nathan called it.
Oh, Nathan called it E.T. Anyway, so this dragon, he had it hooked up to this, flatbed thing, and whenever Christopher, our son, would push down the handle, the dragon would belch smoke, and the kids thought. So that kind of retired the idea of the little red wagon and pulling it with various things like tater tots and spectators and things like that. Then they got the taste of this big, exciting parade entry stuff. And then we used Beck and Marshall's flatbed for a lot of different things, like who needs Hawaii when you can surf the NookChat, and this was a fun one. This was, what's it say, American Backyard Fun with the Joneses, and there's just, all the weenie roasting and clothes hanging on the line and all that kind of stuff. This one was kind of a jailhouse theme with the outlaws all locked up. One of the ones I hope you can get a close-up of that I think people, if you grew up in Whatcom County, will enjoy is this one, the berry theme. How many of you in this room picked berries in Whatcom County, ever? And this is where I'm going to have Jim tell a cute little story of how our paths kind of intersect a bit. But this was one of my favorites. So the kids were all dressed up in an age order and different aspects of picking berries and processing berries and whatnot here in Whatcom County. So on the back of the float, I think there was, how many of you guys remember saying things like, and one of them was, what time is it? And how hot is it today? And is your ticket full yet? And yeah. So I remember getting a lot of applause on that one. And that's kind of the last one I remember where people applauded. Then it seemed like people on the floats were throwing things. And I don't think our kids, do you remember them throwing things on any of the floats that we did? Yeah, I don't remember that either. But anyway, we had a lot of fun. Beck and Marshall, their creative juices just went bananas over the years. This is another really fun one over here. Trying to induce business to Whatcom County. We were hoping, and now we actually do have the Three Flavors restaurant right where we were thinking, oh, that would be such a great place to have some sort of a little record hop ice cream soda shop, something or other. So the kids were all dressed in the 50s, poodle skirts and stuff, and our ice cream chairs. And anyway, so the flatbed that year was trying to encourage, we need more businesses in Nooksack, and this would be a good one. We did a Nooksack Valley School District theme one year, and that's on there somewhere. The kids were dressed up in various ages of costumes. We had the, I see that one now. We had our antique school desks on the flatbed truck, and we had school marms and kids going to the outhouse and all kinds of fun things with that one. This one was through the decades, and so each pair of cousins or so had a decade that they were trying to dress up as, and that was a lot of fun too. But I think one of the more creative ones that actually my kids had nothing to do with that year was the Surf in the Nooksack. That was a good one, with the little grass shack that then sat in the front of the Jones house there in Nooksack for a while. that was a really fun one. But the reason that this poster was made was in 2004 that we all of us, the adults included, all rode bicycles that year. I didn't have any pictures of the dump truck one. What year was that, Mary Lou? Do you remember? Because that's when you termed all the in-laws the outlaws. Was it that year?
Well, there was that one year, the theme was ugly trucks, was the theme of the parade. And they had all these really beat up trucks. So the truck made one run, and then I think the next year we all got on the truck again for its last run.
And that one, when I did this for 2004, those pictures didn't show up, and a few other years, I just didn't have the pictures for them to put it together. But anyway, our family had a lot of fun doing things for the parade. Rose, what were some of your favorite entries that your kids did? Because they were always very, very creative too. Do you remember some of the ones that you guys did?
I think the one we won first place, the one and only time we got first, was Sally, Dick, and Jane. That was my favorite. Robin was Sally riding a little trike in the front.
Yes, yeah. Do you remember what year that one was?
Not off the top of my head, but we didn't join the party until the late 80s, so you had it to yourself before then.
And I even missed the parade altogether this year due to other grandkid stuff. How are the kiddie entries anymore? Do they, because I remember 2 years ago when we went, I think there was maybe one kiddie entry. To me, those were always the most fun, seeing what little kids could get dressed up as. And anybody go to the parade this year?
Well, it was an extra length this year because it didn't form at the grade school. It had to form at the church at the corner, so it was another 2 blocks longer than normal, so that may have took some of the little legs out.
Yeah, and we have formed up in different places over the years. And I think the furthest away before that was at the grade school.
It used to- Like on Blair Drive was the
That
nice
was the
little-
main one, yeah.
Well, there were a lot of BBSs represented, and they had lots of kids riding on their floats.
Yeah, when the library started doing floats, I remember my sisters-in-law and I kind of chatting, boy, they better be a different category than us because they have a lot more kids than we do. And I think that was before we went to the flatbed trucks and whatnot. So we were happy that we weren't having to be judged with the professionals. One of the years, the kids couldn't quite agree on a theme, and so the Bellingham branch of the cousins had decided they wanted to do Snoopy, and they had a cute little dog house and all kinds of stuff, and one of the kids was so happy that they were going to be Pigpen, and they could roll in the dirt first, and every now and again clap themselves and let, the dust fly. By that time, our boys were a little bit bigger, and they didn't quite see themselves in the Peanut Gang, so they decided they were going to honor their Grandpa Jones and do a World War II entry. So they made a tank and dressed in camouflage, and so we had kind of a 2-part entry that year that the Jones cousins were. We went down the route together, but they weren't exactly identical in their theme. There was Snoopy, I guess maybe they tied in the Red Baron or something with World War II so they could have their camouflage tank and whatnot. But anyway, if any other family in the county had as much fun as our family had doing those parade entries for all those years, I hope they have lots and lots of pictures and opportunities to reminisce and enjoy the camaraderie of a family getting together and just kind of brainstorming and coming up with things that they think that the community would have fun looking at as they went down the route, because the Jones family definitely had a very good time doing all of those entries.
Didn't you say you were in the band too?
Oh yeah, in junior high, I know we had our white pants and our purple jerkins, and we played those horns as we went down from NookChat Junior High. And I don't remember the high school band actually being involved, so maybe that was during the time that there was kind of a hiatus, because I graduated from NookChat in '68, and I don't believe we were doing anything like that besides the Blossom Time Parade and the Memorial Day. We would play at the cemeteries all around, but I don't remember marching in an Everson parade in high school, but I do remember marching in the parade in junior high.
Maybe that was when they switched to summer.
Maybe. So when it restarted, the reason I asked about that, when did it change from Fall Festival to Summer Festival, is that in 1980, I don't know if we can find quickly where 1980's entry was, but in 1980 we got not a ribbon but a trophy, and it says Everson Fall Festival on the bottom of it still in 1980, but it was definitely in July. So I don't know if they had leftover little brass plates from years gone by or what. So I'm just very curious if anybody knows when it made that name change and the time of year change.
Yeah, I know the high school played in the early 50s.
Yeah. Were you in the band then?
No, I wasn't,
No.
but I know they played there. I
Yeah.
have pictures of them,
Of them in the parade?
of the high school
Oh, cool.
in the parade in the 50s, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I do have some pictures too that didn't make it on this board because it wasn't family, but my school chums and I, we did a parade entry in the 50s. We were in grade school, and the theme must have been the 49ers or something. It must have been a Gold Rush theme or something, because that's what we were all dressed up as, is Gold Rush stuff. And the brothers of my friend, they were all dressed up in cowboy stuff. They wanted to be what were one of the cowboy shows that was real popular in the 50s? Gunsmoke. Yeah, so the boys were dressed up as Gunsmoke, and we were kind of dressed up, like we had fun dressing up that year too, because we raided our mom's closets and got the longest, fanciest, satiniest looking dresses we could find and fancy things for our hair. And so at least one time they had a 49ers theme, I think, in the 50s. But anyway.
One of the memories
I'll let you
I
guys-
have, one of the
anybody
early
agree?
memories I have is that my sister got married
Okay.
on Saturday of the Fall Festival Day, and I thought that was very inconsiderate. And she got married at 2 o'clock, and I made it to the wedding. I was only 5 minutes late, but I thought it was very inconsiderate because I had just found out the girls were very interesting. And there were a lot of them at the Fall Festival, and a lot of them were Baker girls, which I had developed a liking to. So I had to break off and go down and attend her wedding for a while, but I got back for the evening activities, but I thought that was very unkind of her. So.
The other thing that,
Well, I was gonna say, you share with them then, because you had 2 weddings on parade day.
Yeah, why do they do that? They know it's the annual event. You gotta pick a day in Everson, NookChat, you don't pick Fall Festival Day, period. But she'd just graduated from college and she thought that was the right time to, or no, they were just juniors. They were getting married just before school started so they could move into married housing. So they had to get married before school started so that they could get into married housing, and that was the day. Anyway, I didn't think it was very nice. But anyhow, I was a young kid that didn't know anything, so that was good.
when we had our little visit on the phone last week, just kind of making connections between, I said, well, you probably, if you've been around for a long time, you probably know where we live, which was called the Blickenstaff Place. I remember as a grade school campfire girl going to the Blickenstaff Place and singing to the old folks in the nursing home. That's what our house was in the 50s. And as soon as you heard Blickenstaff Place, then some really cool connections came about. He was saying that he used to pick, and that was funny because the day before you told me about picking berries at the Blickenstaff house, which I had never heard before, one other fellow told me that he picked berries at the Blickenstaff Place in the late 60s or early 70s. I'd never known that about our place, that it had been a berry farm at all. And then to hear it twice within 2 days was kind of something. But what Jim said was that there are 2 brothers that lived there, Leroy and...
No. Johnny and Lowell.
Lowell. Anyway, tell him what the what the one brother did every morning from the barn door.
Oh, Lowell was a musician. As a matter of fact, he spent his active duty as a touring with the Armed Forces Choir. And he... every morning, my little sister, my dad went to work very early in the morning, so he dropped us off at about 5:30 in the morning, and we'd get out there to pick berries, because Homer would let us get out there whenever we got there, and it's still wet, but Lowell would appear, and as soon as he saw us, and stand in the barn door and sing opera to us. So we had operatic things going on in the berry field, which most people didn't even know would happen, but they did.
So I had to go out there and just kind of take a more appreciative look at that gaping barn door after we got off the phone. My goodness.
And I have
the arias that may have been sung there that I
do
never
have
even
a
knew.
picture of all the berry pickers in, I think it was in the early 50s. All the berry pickers in the field.
That.
I was much
What
tall.
did you
I'm much more gangly, and I was taller than anybody else in the field. But the thing about her that really made it interesting is it was in that berry field that I met an older lady from Bellingham, and she was 27, I think, at the time, and she was married and had a 4-year-old child, and I had known about her because they lived across the road in NookChat, out by Glen Echo. But I couldn't imagine why a lady from Bellingham who had a 4-year-old child would be out picking berries. But she told me later that she thought they needed the extra money. But, let's see, in 1990, I married that very lady. She thought at the time I was a show-offy little kid. And I thought she was an older woman with child, so, but Helmer died in between, and she didn't want to bury two husbands, and so she remembered that little kid, and the rest was very good history. So the Blickenstaff place has a very strong memory in my head, and I've learned to play basketball in their barn,
And the hoop is still up there. The barn, the hayloft floor though, our kids were never allowed to go up there because the roof had leaked for years and years and years before we put on the new red tin roof. And so there are holes all over under the hay in that hayloft. So my husband would never let our kids go up there and play.
Oh.
But there is the hoop still up there.
and the ladder you climb up and
Yep.
jump off in the hay. Yeah, yes.
Yep.
Some of us old people remember these dangerous things that children do. So, well, let's see, is there anything else that you need to say about them? I think the house was called the Olin House,
Olin.
O-L-I-N. Olin's lived there. She was the postmistress in Nooksack in the turn of the century.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a new story about the house I've
So,
not heard.
well, you got to read that Nooksack book I wrote.
I
that's
do
sitting
need
in
to
the
read
city
that.
hall down
Is
there.
it checked out? If not, I'm checking it
No,
out
it's
today.
So, you write a lot of stuff, you learn stuff, you write it down, and then nobody reads it. God,
Wow.
what's it come to? And now they tell us it's not important.
Anyway, so Jim has a standing invitation to come for tea or coffee
We
or
will.
whatever at our house.
The next
'cause I
time
wanna-
she's here, she'll have a different story. Any other questions from the group?
Sure.
Yes.
Not a question, but my favorite memory is in the 90s when the Bellingham.
I'm sorry, I
Pipe Band-
can't.
My favorite memory is from the 90s when the Bellingham Pipe Band came. They were in the parade when they were at the beginning. And then they went around behind all the buildings and came through at the end to make the parade longer.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Oh, wow. I remember, I don't know if it was that pipe band, but some pipe band, and our kids being really, really entranced by the music. Yeah. Huh. Were they here only once? Were they only in the parade once? Yeah, just once?
I left in '58, so I don't remember the next year.
Yeah.
So, but it was a fun time, and as she mentioned, they had a carnival in the park. So they had rides and Ferris wheels and all that. There was an actually traveling carnival that was in the park at the same time of the fall festival. I don't know if
It
it
was
was
a
there for
big
summer
deal.
festival, but
Well, it was in
the
the
fall
fall,
festival.
yeah.
The fall
So it must have
festival
been
was-
September. It seemed like it was shortly after school started.
Second
That's
week
when
of
it would be.
September.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was what we did with all our berry money. We blew it at the fall festival.
Cheryl or whoever from the library, when did the library start doing their entries with the kids? Do you remember? Because that was really a good thing. I mean, that's the first thing I remember about getting more kids involved were the big library entries. And then after that, then some of the vacation Bible schools and whatnot would have entries too. And I think the more kids that you can, I don't know, I just think it's a fun thing if you can get the kids involved. Well, I hadn't prepared anything, so I'm long past done. So if anybody else?
No other questions?
I would make one comment. You were asking about when you started throwing candy.
Yeah.
Well, currently in Nooksack right now, the 5th generation from the Lagasse family is living in Nooksack. And Alexis Larson was on the WeQ float about 5 years ago, and so they were throwing
They were
candy.
throwing
So some of our little
It has
ones
trickled down and now they're
have
throwing
thrown
candy.
from the float.
Yeah, and I just don't remember if when we did the bicycle entry in 2004, if we had, bags of candy from
No, I
our
don't
bikes,
think
did
we
we
did.
throw? Huh?
We didn't.
We didn't, yeah.
That's not saying the float people didn't.
From that bicycle entry, one of the other little pieces of show and tell, because I thought the more I have to show, the less I have to tell, was a postcard that I found in the Everson Hallmark store that the summer after our parade in 2004, my husband Bob, who's probably never ridden a bicycle probably 20 years before that to currently since it, and one of my nieces were on a postcard advertising Everson in the Everson Hallmark store from that parade. And I had that pinned to the bulletin board for years. I thought, oh good, I'll just bring that along too, and of course it wasn't there today.
Was the bicycle one in '06?
04, I think.
'04, we're all on the truck because we.
Oh, that was the truck?
We
Okay.
stopped in front of the house because I said, this is 50 years ago.
Okay,
Bicycle was '06.
so the bicycle was before. After, we did one after that?
'06 were the bicycles.
Okay. Well, see, that's why I asked my big brother to be here. He's got a better memory than I do.
You marked one way of remembering bicycles. I just got out of the hospital with surgery a month before, and I was
That's
worried
right.
about riding that bicycle.
That's right. So that was '06, okay.
Well, the Joneses are a good family. I thought so much of them that when I retired from the school board, I recommended that my neighbor, whose name's Steve Jones, take my place. And he's been on the school board ever since. And that was in 89.
I think next year will mark his 35th year involved with the parade.
Ah.
Steve?
Do you remember what year the parade started?
No, I only remember that we were in it in 1954. I don't know when it started. I just know that when we moved back here in 1954, that we were
Well, I
in
know it was there in 52, but that's when my
Okay.
sister got married. I can't date anything before that. I was still a child, you know. You gotta remember that children don't remember dates very well. So, I think that's it then. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have anything more, write up the thing, we'll tell you.